This one is very easy. Conor McGregor wins at UFC 246, only 40 seconds into the very first round, stopping Donald Cerrone with strikes. Referee Herb Dean was the one who intervened, Brian. The question I think that we need to start today, and we can go a lot of different directions. I'll go first on this one. What would be the biggest takeaway from the win of Conor McGregor? And I will say this. We all said he had to win going into the weekend when he does. But there was a question about what is actually really achievable with the win. If you get a split decision, what can you really say about that? If you dominated but it goes the distance, another set of narratives emerge. But what about the one where you beat Donald Cerrone faster than anyone's ever beaten him? What if you do it and he doesn't even land a glove on you? I still think we need to have some managed expectations. We didn't see his gas tank checked. We didn't see him go into a third round and see if his game develops in any kind of new way. In fact, I did it for Dissected. What we saw on Saturday was just kind of, for the most part, shoulder strikes notwithstanding, kind of classic Conor McGregor. But here's what I will say was my biggest takeaway. In terms of what was achievable and in terms of what the goal was, get a win, re-inspire the fan base, get some good PR, because he needed it, and show that even in a tight window, that 40-second window, you are a force to be reckoned with again. I think he succeeded wildly. I think on all of those terms, he succeeded. Now, did I see anything in there that told me he can beat Jorge Masvidal? It was 40 seconds. I just didn't see a lot. Did I see anything in there, Brian Campbell, that told me he could beat Khabib Nurmagomedov? It was 40 seconds. There was no wrestling. I just can't make that kind of determination. Did I see, though, a guy who reignited passions in the fan base, who got good press, who got an important win in his third weight class, who set himself up in the catbird seat to re-inspire imagination and get people to go to the turnstile at the box office? He did all of it and then some. Everything that was possible, he did. That is my biggest takeaway.
Absolutely. Look, what this was on paper, in an era in UFC with great matchmaking where you don't make get-well fights, this was a celebrity puffed-up get-well fight. Obviously, there was potential for him to lose it. There was some certain level of intrigue of Cowboy being a live dog and all that. But UFC's goal with this fight was to revive Conor McGregor's pay-per-view brand. And from that standpoint, this was an absolute grand slam. You want to talk about giving at least the illusion. You're right, in 40 seconds, we can't answer any of those questions. Is he a legitimate welterweight, gas tank, wrestling, all that stuff? But yet in 40 seconds, a complete return, putting all the air back into the balloon of this guy being a dominant finisher. And I think at the end of the day, even though Conor can talk, and that's a big part of who he is, the fact that he finishes elite-level opponents, usually after predicting and claiming it, is the number one calling card of why people keep coming and why he's such a great pay-per-view brand. And to return to that and to remove, we talked about the crossroads where we're at here. If Conor didn't win this fight, if this was any kind of loss, it was disastrous. He would then become the, hey, let's fight Nate and let's find an exit strategy. What he did in those 40 seconds was completely remove that. That's off the table. Whether he beats Masvidal or Khabib or Gaethje or anybody else next or not, that's off the table. He's not a train wreck. He is somebody who seems like excess took a toll on him over the last couple of years, but he regrouped and put that back. And then you want to talk about, from a marketing point of view, what this means for the rest of 2020. 40 seconds is 40 seconds. People are going to go, oh, man, I didn't really learn what I came to learn. Oh, it was entertaining, but I wanted more. I wanted 2 rounds of action. From a business perspective, that's the best way that fight could have finished, because those same questions we had coming in, is he all these things? We now push that ahead to the next fight, and that level of intrigue will keep you coming back, I think, at a higher pace than had he spent 2 rounds in there decimating him. It's almost like there's still a little bit of that illusion left, and we come for McGregor to see the show, but because he's so polarizing, there's always going to be that cut of the population who comes for the chance to say, I told you so. He's not that guy. And when you win in 40 seconds, you still leave some of those questions out there. Genius for marketing, the way it played out. I don't think UFC and Dana White could be doing anything but bathing in dollars after this.
I'm sure you've seen it. I posted a piece of hate mail I got because I apparently refused to call it a fixed fight. You see a lot of the fixed fight birds coming out here. I'm not suggesting that they're in number enough that anyone should be concerned, nor am I suggesting there's any real merit to the position. I don't think that there is, but that's not the point. The point being is Conor was so dominant inside that 40-second window, a small window, but still, he was so dominant. People particularly his critics, maybe more than just his critics, his haters, the people who just can't stand the guy, it brought them out into full force. He is a magnetism, or I should say a magnet rather, for controversy in all forms, frivolous, fun, serious, and everything in between. And you're going to carry, as you noted, that part forward. Plus, we were sort of worrying about this pre-fight. Is he going to inspire us to reconsider his heights, or are we about to discover what his floor is? In part, to your point, the question's still kind of valid. We don't really know, but I would say people might be starting to tilt towards, well, we might be rediscovering a little bit more of a renewed possibility here, a renewed heights he can reach.
So you sort of pleased everyone with the result, ultimately.
You pissed off who you supposed to piss off, and you pleased everyone who you were supposed to please, and that is some serious momentum.
And on top of it, one of Conor's biggest critics during Fight Week was actually Dana White, who all this talk about potentially Jorge next or potentially all these other things, which we can get into. Dana was still steadfast through Friday after the weigh-in when he did a little mini scrum with media backstage, and he told us, I don't think Conor should fight any of these 170s. Even Cowboy is too big for him. That's the boss saying that on Friday when Conor went out and decimated Cowboy at 170. Yes, they're blown up lightweights. All of that is actually true. But when your proof and your eyes show you a full 170-pound man looking that crisp, that imaginative, that explosive, in that short window, even Dana afterwards said, I'm no longer going to make those comments. He can fight anybody he wants. Like, that's impressive.
Cerrone went the distance with Robbie Lawler. Now, Conor wanted to claim that he has the wins in 3 different weight classes. He was the first person to do it. Well, he's the first person to do it at featherweight, lightweight, and welterweight.
He's coming knockouts at all 3.
Stoppage losses, but even then, Jared Cannonier has it at heavyweight, light heavyweight, and middleweight. So he's actually not the first, but he might be the first in those divisions, and that's still impressive in its own right. Only reason I bring it up is I had some concerns about his power. Not that I thought it was phony, but Nate Diaz does have a good chin, but it's just one opponent, 2 fights. What do we really know? And here's what I'll say: Robbie Lawler couldn't put Donald Cerrone away, and their fight started identically with smashing into the clinch. I remember that Robbie Lawler kind of bombed on him early, and in that one, Cerrone hung on at least to lose a decision, but he didn't get stopped. He just didn't have that opportunity here against against Conor all this time later. But my point about the power, what's kind of interesting about it is, I don't know exactly if he's as big a power puncher at 170 as at 155, because I want to see him fight somebody who, yes, Cowboy went from 155 to 170 and had 10 fights at 170 and beat good guys. But to really see, I need to see somebody who can't make 155, like a Tyron Woodley. But here's what I would say: no matter what, he pretty clearly has enough firepower for 170.
Yeah.
He clearly can hold his own there, one way or the other.
When he's dialed in, which was the theme of this week, right? From that first press conference on Wednesday where we're like, okay, what Conor are we going to get? Rattled Conor, aggressive, trash-talking Conor? No, we got gentlemanly, humorous, jovial, humble Conor. And I know some of the debate all week is that the actual guy, or is this just a very smart PR campaign to sort of go up against the negative headlines, the sexual assault accusations, all of that? And it's not like we didn't see what happened at the press conference when they shut Morgan Campbell down. That was, a kick to the face of journalism, by the way. But that notwithstanding, you know what the biggest accomplishment I think Conor had this week, even better than reviving himself as a legitimate fighter and proving he can fight at 170, this was a masterful work of PR. I mean, an absolutely masterful work. And you know it's true when you know your own friends in the business, your own media friends, your own friends who work for UFC, who you know are non-Conor guys, who are like, man, that POS, off the record to you are going, hey, man, if Conor acts like he just did the last couple of days publicly more often, I love that guy.
Right.
Remember that guy? I love that guy.
Sign me up. I'm not a guy who hates Conor McGregor, but I didn't love the way he would treat other opponents, Aldo and Alvarez. I got to tell you, I've never liked Conor McGregor more than I liked him this week.
And I respect Conor after the fight when he was asked about that at the press conference, what would happen if and when you fight Khabib again, and he was like, honestly, he's like, look, this is who I am. You may see me sparked again, but whether this was 100% authentic, whether this was a man who, in this wild 3 years since he was last on top of the mountain in UFC, has really gone through enough ish, a lot of it self-inflicted, I can believe that he's partially enough of a changed man to make that feel real to me, what he's saying.
Right.
But even if it's bullshit, that's a masterful PR move, because he kind of went through there and revived himself in a way that the best historical combat sports superstars, the ones that you cannot get enough of. I'm talking about Ali, Tyson, Mayweather. they were able to constantly float between being a hero and villain in the public eye and just kind of just change genres constantly. And that gray area is really where the interest level is, because it makes you care about them. If you're predetermined to hate them, you have plenty of reason to keep hating them. If you're predetermined to worship and idol them, then they give you plenty of reason. But in between that gray area, they're showing so much humanity that it's so relatable that Conor is obviously the star of this era, of this lifetime, from the standpoint of ticket sales. But I think from the standpoint of capturing our imagination, and this week was that new chapter. This is like David Bowie going, hey, I did a funk album and a rock album. Let's try a country one. This was Conor sort of going, hey, let's try to be America's sweetheart, and it worked.
I'll tell you this, last thing about it was, I would say, is a lot of folks were worried because if you looked at the way he was before, he'd have this intensity and this animosity and this sort of verve that would carry right through to the fight. It was all kind of one note by design, and we thought, well, if he's going to be one note and he's calm, does that mean he's going to be a different fighter? Is he going to be too calm? Or is he going to trade off something for maturity in terms of being a fighter? Well, it turns out not at all. He was as ferocious as normal when the fight began. Had cleaned up mechanics. Again, a lot of classic Conor weapons, a couple of new ones thrown in there for good measure. But I will tell you, to me, it's like, look, will he stay out of trouble? Your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea. But I would actually say if you're a Conor McGregor fan, maybe you like the old days of antagonism, and I still kind of think if he gets face-to-face with Habib, you're going to get a whole lot of that back.
Cowboy didn't throw anything at him. We have to remember that, right? In the pre-fight, Cowboy did nothing but be like, I respect this guy.
Assiduously avoided it. I don't think Jorge's going to do that, and we know Khabib's not going to do that, at least in terms of what he represents. But here's my point. If you're a Conor fan, you should be heartened, because I actually think rather than a change being a distraction, if he is to achieve new heights, Brian Campbell, I don't think he can do it without the change. I don't think he can do it without being a little bit older, a little bit wiser, a little bit more of pick my battles smartly, stay focused in training. And we'll see if he says he's going to go back to training after 1 or 2 days off. We'll see if that actually happens. I tend to think that it will. But to me, I likened it on my post-fight show to Tiger Woods changing his golf swing. And that's nerve-wracking. Or how about even
Or his women habits, yeah.
That too. But how about the Pelicans teaching Zion Williamson how to run again?
Yes.
I mean, these are very, you think, wow, that's really scary. What if we don't get that right? But it turns out that those kinds of changes, under the right conditions, under the right sort of leadership, or in that particular case, medical supervision, this is a little bit of a different case, those are actually what you need to take the next step. And for me, I got to tell you, not only did I like the way he was acting on Fight Week, I don't know what the situation is with the sexual assault allegations. We'll see what happens. But in terms of, I think, setting himself up to maximize his potential, that's the Conor McGregor at age 30, 31 that he needs to be to get the best out of himself. He cannot do it doing the same old things.
I want to say this. When when we give takes on any polarizing athlete, you get half of the population being like, oh, you're a
shill,
and certainly you always have to put in play this. When a star is on the level of Conor, when he wins and is back like this, yes, it helps everybody. It helps our careers. It helps everybody. We put that out there just to say it. But one thing, I kind of want to believe the image that he put through. I don't know if you saw the interview with Ariel Helwani last Monday on ESPN when Conor talked heavily about, drinking in the training camp for Habib. Getting into like real sparring situations without headgear, knocking people out, and then taking 3 days off and going out and partying. It's obvious that version of him at 229, whether or not Habib would always beat him or not, right? That's not the best possible version of Conor McGregor. He was living the I'm the king life at that point. The fact that, look, he's such a great loser. Conor McGregor is the best loser UFC has ever seen because...
Ben Askren's a pretty good one.
There's a few of them. But he gets right back on track. He wants a rematch right away. He wants to publicly kind of talk it out and figure out what went wrong and share with you. I think he was doing that again, saying, I was in some pretty bad things in 2018 and 2019. I was believing my, hype train a little bit too much. The fact that he seems to come around full circle on that, I'm not here to completely advocate him as a human. I'm here to tell you that this is a compelling story that's ongoing, and it's hard not to be behind, if not cheering for him to win, which we don't really cheer for win and lose in journalism. Obviously, there's a reason not to, but cheering for him to be relevant and to be there at the table and to be the very best of him. I got to give him credit for what he was able to do this weekend on that.
He could have gone down the path of self-destruction. And again, the jury's still out. We're still very early into the process. That's the best decision he ever made.
I mean, the amount of noise that Jay's letting into my ear hole right now is just, it's
but
ridiculous.
The point being is this, and we'll move on to topic 2, which is, I'll say this. Again, the journey's not over. It's going to be a long while before he can really find something to really say he's a brand new person. He's going to have to stay out of trouble. So certainly all that is the case. But he could have gone down that path of self-destruction. He had the financial wherewithal. He had the career accomplishments. And something about it the whole situation, again, his own malfeasance included, has sort of forced this change. I want to see it brought to its full potential, but you have to kind of commend that. You have to commend a guy who made a choice, and he took the harder, more difficult approach of the two in terms of rebuilding some things that had been lost.
People love winners, first and foremost. The casual public that buys pay-per-views, they love redemption stories even more. I mean, that's really the bottom line. He has that potential.
And the redemption story will continue.